Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Connection, the place that we gather each week to connect with each other, whether it be in person here in the building at Spirit and Truth Sanctuary, or you're joining us online. Everyone is welcome to join however you want to. We will begin today with our daily devotion from the book Fully Awake 365. Yesterday began a brand new month, the month of May, which means we have a new monthly theme, and it is, I'm not in trouble, I'm in transition. And that is a lovely way to think about things when issues come up in our lives from time to time. Let's start by preparing our hearts and opening our minds with our prayer of surrender. Spirit of truth, carry me where you will, bring to me what you will, take from me what you will, awaken in me what you will. The Christ man is around me, the Christ mind is in me, the Christ power flows through me, and the Christ mystery exists as me. I believe it, I perceive it, and now I receive it. I am surrendered. Amen. And so it is. All right, today's devotion is called Just Say No. Does anyone remember that phrase being popularized back in the 80s by former First Lady Nancy Reagan? It was it was her slogan, actually, for her campaign against drugs, specifically aimed at young people. But that's not quite the context we'll be talking about it, saying no in today. And as we get on and get further into the text, you'll see what the kind of no we're going to be talking about. But first, let's recite the affirmation together. If you have your books here, or it'll be on the screen for those of you at home. I know today that an appropriate no is just the starting point for the many yeses that will open the door for me to live my life more fully and abundantly. Okay, so as I said, our theme for the month of May is I'm not in trouble, I'm in transition. And when we talk about transition, the word itself lets us know that there is some movement occurring, okay? We're transitioning or moving from one place to another place, whether it's a physical move or an emotional shift or a spiritual one. And as I spoke about a little on Sunday, sometimes you run into trouble if you try to shift gears or change directions too quickly. When you're driving a car and you're in drive, you can't just immediately shift into reverse or vice versa. First of all, you have to put on the brakes, you have to slow down. And if you'll notice, on every gear shift in automatic cars, that neutral gear is between the reverse and the drive. And if you're driving a manual, what we call a stick shift, I had to learn how to drive one of those long eons ago. You'll know that in the middle, that is that neutral place. And every time you put the clutch in and go from one gear to another, you got to move through that middle neutral gear first. So that's what transition in our lives represents. It's that neutral place that you stop in temporarily before arriving in a different place. And sometimes if you're not fully awake and aware, you can feel like you're stuck, okay? And you can get stuck there if you choose not to move out of the neutral gear. If you freeze up because you're afraid or anxious or discouraged or overly tired, then you won't continue moving. But here's the thing, it's always up to you. Let me read you really quickly a quote by Danielle LaPorte from her book that we've read from a couple of times before, How to Be Loving. She says, "You are never stuck. Even when you think you're stuck, you're actually connected to a highly dynamic world. Everything in the universe is continually shifting in response to everything else in the universe. You are always changing." Okay, so to go with our theme, we could also say, you are always transitioning. And as we know, The only constant in the whole universe is change. So one of the ways we can get ourselves out of a place where we're feeling stuck is surprisingly by learning how and when to say no appropriately. Now, we talk a lot around here about saying yes and being open and accepting the moment as it is and loving it all, as we should. But let's go now to the first line of the text of our devotion, which says, saying no can be positive sometimes. Okay, so let's think about that. That's a paradox. Let's look at some examples. For instance, when you know your own self-worth and you find yourself in a situation where it's not being recognized by others. This is the no Rosa Parks felt on the bus that day. It's the no black men felt as they carried signs saying, "I am a man." It's the no the prodigal son felt when he, the son of a prominent, influential man, looked around and realized he was eating and living with pigs. It's the no every addict feels when they realize an addiction has taken over their life, changed everything about them, and they finally say no more. It's the no you feel when you're tired of living every day with the disempowering thought patterns of fear and negativity, and you make a decision right then and there to make a change. In other words, it's when you remember your divinity and you say, I'm better than this, but not in an egotistical or ego-driven, entitled way. This is talking about, as the devotion stated in the beginning, when you know the situation you're in and that you're allowing yourself to stay in is beneath the dignity of your own divinity. That's what I'm talking about when that's the I'm better than this I'm talking about. My older son has a tattoo all the way across his chest that says, remember who you are. Because that's what his dad and I told him every time he left the house when he was little, which meant behave yourself and act like you know who you are. And so that's the next little piece I want to bring in here. As children of God, as divine beings, we shouldn't be living and eating with pigs. And I'm not, you might say, well, are you calling some people pigs? No, I'm not. But it's up to us to recognize our divinity, our station as a child of God, and to remember who we are and behave accordingly. Just because you're behaving like a pig doesn't make you a pig, but it's always your choice how you want to behave. And one option you always have available to you is behaving like a pig. So, but somewhere down inside, you know that is less than what you're worth. So the good news is you can change your behavior at any time you want to. And sometimes the transition, which is what we're talking about this month, from how you're currently behaving to how you know you should be behaving, starts with saying no to that bad or unconscious, low vibrational behavior. Like it said in the affirmation, an appropriate no is just a starting point for the many yeses that will open the door to a full and abundant life for you. So it's not a no like that old cereal commercial from the 70s, that old Life cereal commercial with the three little boys that were brothers, and none of them wanted to try the cereal because their mom had told them it was good for them. And they said, let's give it to Mikey. And the other boy said, he won't eat it. He hates everything. So it's not just that immediate no because you're being obstinate and you don't want to try or change anything. It's not that kind of no. It's what this kind of no can be a positive no. The last paragraph of the text tells us this. This kind of no begins an emotional chain reaction and sets into motion an energetic shift within you that ripples out through every part of your life. Learning to say no appropriately is just as important as learning to say yes. So, it's the other side of the coin. It's the balance. It's rightly dividing. It's learning how to use your discernment. When you know who you are, then you also know who you're not, which includes knowing the places and situations you shouldn't be in and activities you shouldn't be participating in because they're not contributing to or leading you to your highest good and your highest self. So sometimes you just got to say no. Let's end the devotion by saying today's prayer together. Source of divine guidance, help me today to have the courage to say no to the things in my life that are holding me back and hindering my growth. Amen. All right, so deep breath in. That was a good word, if I do say so myself, because I wrote today's. Now, let's transition into today's teaching by saying our connection affirmation. I allow perfect health in my body, perfect peace in my mind, perfect unconditional love in my heart, and the perfect divine timing of spirit to guide my life in thought, word, and deed. Amen, and so it is. I quoted from a book either last week or week before last called Vibrate Higher Daily by a woman named Layla Delia. And just like the book by Danielle Laporte, How to Be Loving, the more I read this book also, Vibrate Higher Daily, the more I like it, the better it gets. And I rarely do this, but today I'm going to go through an entire chapter of this book from start to finish because it's that good. The chapter, which is also my title today, is called Terrains We Journey Through. It's not an especially long teaching, but it's packed with some good advice for how to deal with the various transitions that occur in our lives. So let's get started. The chapter begins, the journey itself is a sacred and necessary part of the process, not to be skipped. And yet, it can be difficult to surrender to and begin. Throughout your life, you will journey through many terrains, and being prepared for them allows you to more readily accept your mission and proceed with skill and higher awareness. The not-so-easy parts of life are part of the journey too. And this is where a lot of people come to a halt and are tempted to quit, or like we just talked about in the devotion, some people feel stuck. Sometimes people do quit, or they resist, tune out, or lose hope. But in order to arrive where you're going, in order to transition, you have to keep going through all the different terrains until you get to the other side. Our ability to accept this mission, to remember who we are as divine beings and to do the necessary work to get through it is life-altering. The daily process is not about chasing perfection. It's about rising every day from wherever you find yourself and becoming better, doing better from that place. Or as Oprah often says, when you know better, you do better. And that's what we talked about a few weeks ago, the dance between effort and ease, the acceptance of the moment, of the situation as it is, and loving it, but then surveying it and deciding whether or not you think it's good. And if it's not, going about making the changes necessary to recreate it and make it good, which all starts with remembering who you are. When the journey is long, journey fatigue, burnout, mental exhaustion, and a need for recovery may arise. And through, I found that it's higher purpose, my spiritual practice, and honoring my self-care routine that empower me to overcome those things. I can continue to move through without becoming hindered by the process. Okay, so she's saying that it's her higher purpose, or as I just said, remembering who you are and recognizing and honoring your own divinity. Then it's doing the work of a daily spiritual practice, whatever that is for you, and self-care, or the balance between doing and being, knowing when to rest from being active and allowing some things to integrate. That is her prescription when you feel overwhelmed or burnt out. She continues, think of a long road trip. You leave a familiar place behind, often traveling through unfamiliar wilderness to get to where you're going. You're patient through the middle part of the journey, knowing that you will arrive in due time. This allows you to relax and flow with the process. Although at times it may feel as if you have no roadmap, the way becomes visible as you continue moving forward. So now she starts describing the various types of terrain we can encounter on our journey through life. And the first one is the mountain. The mountain is your obstacle. It's the thing that feels too overwhelming to get around or over. It often causes stress and can lead to lower vibrations. The mountain is the emotional heaviness, the burdens, pain, stressors, triggers, workload, lifestyle habits, and people that don't serve your higher good. It's your not so positive behaviors and cycles that are stuck on repeat. It's whatever you're currently stressing about or losing sleep over. It's the thing you think might cause you to have a nervous breakdown. That's your mountain. Vibrating higher is climbing the mountain. As you start moving up, you're able to see life from a higher vantage point. With the advantage of this higher perspective, you become more aware of your surroundings. Your insight is expanded, and the things you once thought were larger than life become smaller. You notice that the higher you get up, the smaller things look on the ground. More surmountable and even at times insignificant to you. On the journey, everyone has a mountain to climb. Okay, remember we talked once about getting up in that lifeguard chair so that you can look down into the pool that is your life and see everything from that higher perspective and kind of know where to connect the dots, and you can see, oh, well, this thing over here is related to this thing. Well, you can't see that when you remain staying down here on the same level. You've got to get up a little higher in your awareness and in your vibration to see things clearly. Okay, she ends the passage by giving us the purpose that the mountain serves in our lives. The journey brings you to the mountain to strengthen and fortify you, to raise your awareness, to expand your vision, and to build your vibrational and spiritual muscles, endurance, and resilience. The mountain is the entry point to self-discipline, renewed strength, and higher awareness, insight, and perspective. All right, so we've also talked before about self-governance being the key to spiritual growth. Once you learn to govern yourself and you're no longer needing a pastor or a strict set of rigid religious rules to tell you what to do, that's when you know you've actually become spiritually mature. And climbing the mountains in our lives leads, she says, to this self-discipline, which is also the same thing as self-governance. Okay, next terrain, the desert. The desert is the place on your journey where it appears you're all alone, although technically you're not. When you're in a desert terrain, nothing seems to be growing or moving forward. Nothing appears nourishing. The desert is the period of time when you're forced to be away from your norm. It's a wilderness experience during which you don't see anything manifesting. Boredom, loneliness, and even hopelessness can set in. The desert is also a place where things and people are divinely stripped away. Now, time out. We say it every week here at Spirit and Truth in the form of our prayer of surrender. We say, take from me what you will. Now, I think sometimes we just say that without thinking about it. But when you keep saying that, then you're opening the door for Spirit to take from you those things that are not positive for you. So that's what she's talking about here. This desert place is allowing things to be stripped away from you that are necessary for us to grow. The desert is a place of solitude, release, and reflection that can, if you learn to vibrate higher through it, become a paradise and an oasis. This powerful place of deep refuge is a resting place where you can experience transformation, awakening, and rebirth. The desert is a space for purging and allows for a higher connection and realignment with the divine. It is oftentimes a place of lasting spiritual significance. Everyone must journey through their own desert experience. Then she gives its purpose. The desert is the transitional place in the journey where you purge all that you are not and dissolve all that's no longer useful to you. It's the initiation and entry point into a new vibration of your life's purpose, power, and work, the place through which you become your truer and higher self. So I like to think of Jesus in the wilderness as a good parallel for this, what she's talking about here, as a desert experience. It's where he faced all of his lower nature, all of his ego, all of his humanity. He purged it, and he emerged from the wilderness as his higher Christed self. All right, next terrain, the storm. A spiritual storm is a divinely controlled experience, event, or condition in your life that can result in loss, confusion, and pain. Yet, this chaos is good. This chaos is for your higher good and progress. The storm is where and when some part of your life is suddenly disrupted by the winds of change. As a result, you can be left feeling hopeless with no sense of direction or way of escape. Further disorientation and losing your way can set in if you're not careful and aware of the powerful purpose of this metaphorical weather pattern. Vibrating higher is how you outlast the storm. While in the midst of it, you vibrate higher by seeking shelter in, aligning with, and anchoring yourself in the divine. Drawing nearer to your source, a greater force, gives you spiritual covering and leads to strength, focus, and the perfect peace that the Holy Scriptures speak of. Through the storm and afterward, as you move onward, you gain greater resilience and power. Remember that you're never alone in the storm and that it has a greater purpose to work in your life. This perspective allows you to endure it in a more empowered way. As a result, the storm elevates you to higher levels within, opening the way for a new direction and a higher level of stability in your life. Storms have 3 stages: the developing storm, the mature storm, and the dissipating storm. Knowing this and recognizing when you're entering or leaving each stage helps you to remain prepared. Keep in mind that all storms pass. The skies eventually clear. The sun always comes out again. Calming and stilling your mind is a spiritual tool that plays a huge part in calming and stilling the storm. All right, so remember, as within, so without. You've got to get calm and still inside first, and then that stillness can manifest in your outer experience. Sometimes I like to view it as, there's this painting that I saw one time, and I can't find it again, but it was just a woman sitting in a boat going through the middle. And I always kind of, when I mentally try to visualize myself in a storm, you just have to think of yourself, visualize yourself as just sitting steady in that boat and doing whatever you can to just keep it in balance until you get on the other side of the storm. Okay, she says, since the storm is not a physical terrain like the mountain or the desert, it can happen at any time during the journey. This is the hallmark of its unstable nature. A storm can happen in any terrain. Both physical and spiritual storms are created by unstable atmospheres, but ironically, they also help to stabilize the atmosphere. Whatever is hindering you from moving forward, the storm comes to clear the way through, necessarily cleansing and purifying. Always remember, this too shall pass. The purpose of the storm is to strengthen you, to clear your path, and to reroute your life. It purifies you and helps you develop a higher level of spiritual, mental, and emotional stability and power. All right, so we all know that feeling, that smell that after a good rain. You go outside and everything just looks and feels clean and shiny. The little water droplets are making the leaves shine. And after it's been dark and cloudy and gloomy, and then all of a sudden the sun breaks through and you feel its warmth, that's what the storm in your life is like, okay? It's gloomy and depressing and challenging and dark while you're in the middle of it. But when it passes, there's that brand new, shiny, clean start. So, all right, moving on to our next terrain, which is the ocean. Okay, so this is one of my favorite metaphors, the sea of life. We've compared our lives to the ocean many times before here in our Tuesday morning teachings. She says, life happens in tides and waves. The ocean is a spiritual metaphor for the state and vastness of your emotions and energy. It's the unexplored depths of your subconscious mind, your potential, and the current level of vibration of your life. Waves represent your inner life, your emotions, vibrations, energy, and moods. Your waves are what you, at any given moment, vibrationally feel and then express. Your ocean speaks through your reactions, behaviors, choices, moods, and words. In the course of each day, the waves come and go to the shores of your life, moment by moment, experience by experience, and tide by tide. Tides represent your outer life, the surrounding stimuli that affect your inner waves, such as people, foods, and energies you come in contact with. Okay, I would also describe this as the collective consciousness that we've talked about, all those things that are outside of your immediate control. Tides show up as either high vibrations or low vibrations and vary in intensity. Or I would kind of compare that to whatever time period that you were born in or what country you were born in, what's going on in the place or the region where you live. Some people live through times of war and their lives are very tumultuous because of that. Other people live through times or live in countries where it's relatively peaceful. Some people live through the Great Depression. Others have lived in a time of prosperity. So wherever you come in and whatever is going on in the world around you carries a certain vibration and a certain energy that all has an effect on you. But still, how you handle it is all up to you. Back to the book. Tides are the experiences and circumstances that, with skill, you navigate into, through, and out of. The various ocean states represent the sliding scale of joy and turbulence in your life. Okay, I want to just time out here and interject the fact that I always talk about, I believe that there's a little bit of difference between joy and happiness. And I think what she's meaning here is happiness. Okay, so she's saying that these tides that you really can't control, that are coming from the collective consciousness, they can affect whether you're kind of on this end toward turbulence or this end toward, I would say, happiness rather than joy, because I believe joy is a constant. That whenever you're connected to your source, you can feel joy even if your current life circumstances are making you unhappy, you can still have joy. So I would just make that one little distinction. She says, like the ocean, you are capable of being peaceful, calm, soothing, stable, focused, and balanced, as well as stormy, overpowering, unstable, unpredictable, unfocused, and imbalanced. Navigating the ocean is about maintaining higher awareness and balance within so that you don't feel unbalanced or disoriented to the point that you sink. When the mind is at a high vibration, the ocean is a place of empowerment, refuge, and relaxation. Okay, so we all know that when we kind of feel that relaxation when we're at the beach, because that's just the vibe that the ocean gives off. But if you're in a boat in the middle of a storm in the ocean, it doesn't feel that way. When the mind is vibrating lower, it's a place of disempowerment, turbulence, and vibrational imbalance. Emotional waves can obstruct your vision and hinder your ability to navigate forward successfully and clearly in life. When in balance, your emotions support your vision, progress, and forward movement, birthing greater strength, courage, and faith along the way. The purpose of the ocean is for you to learn inner balance and peace. The ocean moves you into higher levels of self-control. Or we can also replace that, as we talked about, self-discipline, self-governance, whatever you want to call it. I would also add that it helps you to trust yourself, because when you go through that storm, when you learn how to navigate the ocean, then when you come to the next storm, you can say, guess what? I faced that storm in the past and I came through it. I'm going to face this storm and go through it and get on the other side of it as well. So you learn every time you go through a storm to trust yourself a little bit more that you are capable of doing it. Okay? The ocean washes to the shore what no longer serves you. Now, some of these overlap because she's kind of said that about all of this, but that's a theme she's saying about anything that's not supposed to be there. All these terrains will help you get rid of it. It's up to you to release what goes to the shore. Instead of holding on to what comes up, detach and allow the ocean to wash it away. Okay, so we have now arrived at our final terrain for today, and it is the fog. In the fog, you can't see your way clearly and you feel stuck. You may have to slow down significantly in order to regain clarity. Fog clouds the path you're on with fear, distraction, stress, and exhaustion. Doubt and things other people say to you may distract and discourage you and threaten to pull you off your chosen path. You may experience a feeling of spiritual heaviness. Okay, so you know how fog, when you're in a fog, it just feels thick. Just everything, you just feel oppressed. Fog feels very oppressive. But as you consciously vibrate higher, the fog eventually clears and you break out of any stagnation and blockage in your life and are able once more to pick up the pace and move forward. Okay, so I compare it to, you know, when a storm's coming, or they tell you to shelter in place, or like when you're driving through fog, it's a good idea to slow down and put on your low beams, not try to leave your brights on and just, barrel through even when you can't see what's right in front of you. So that's all about cultivating stillness. When you're in a fog, that's when you just need to slow down, turn those low beams on. Don't be making any big decisions until it clears a little bit. Sometimes you have to break from the norm, she says. Try something new and practice lots of self-care to defog your mind. But like a lighthouse, the divine will always shine through the fog to light your way. You must always be looking for the light. If you're not aware that you're in the fog, you might find yourself making impulsive, reactionary decisions, either consciously or unconsciously. All right, so that's why the advice is to slow down until you find the light and you can see clearly again. Your journey brings you to the fog to learn how to gain greater clarity and how to find better focus and direction. It's about finding the higher way through. Okay, so we're all familiar with that phrase and that concept of taking the high road rather than the low road. I think that's what she's talking about here. So those are the various terrains in life that we all journey through in our own space and at our own pace. And here's how the chapter concludes. When you're growing into higher vibrational living, your ability to overcome metaphorical terrains and weather patterns becomes a spiritual art at which you'll become more and more skilled. No longer will you be defeated by whatever comes your way. You'll know life as a sacred and ultimately positive process that you've been called to journey through. Knowing that the process is working for your good is essential and makes all the difference between feeling overwhelmed, lost, and desperate, and feeling like all is in divine order at all times, and that you are always more than capable. You'll remember that you're the hero of your own story. You will become more and more poised in your own divine power. We're each here to prevail through the terrains our lives present to us in order to accomplish what we've been sent to do. Vibrating higher is how we do that. Apply and integrate the necessary tools that you learn along the way. And when you find yourself in a difficult terrain or weather pattern, know that it's only temporary. It's only an invitation to a higher vibrational way of living. Each terrain is a gateway, an initiation process for transformation, elevation, fortification, and higher purpose. Whatever terrain you're currently in, see it as a sacred place to gather your strength and then eventually find rest. Trust the process and honor what it has come to do for you. Amen. So there is very little that I can add to that, so I'm not going to try. Let's stand as Mom comes to the piano, and we will sing our ending song today. Blessed always. Thank you so much for joining us. Those of you online, we'll see you tomorrow night at 6:30, Friday morning at 7 a.m., and then on Sunday. Blessed always, blessed always, for the arms of God surround us. Let our joy be so triumphant that we rest in God and say amen. Blessed always, blessed always, for the arms of God surround us. Let our joy be so triumphant that we rest in God and say amen. Have a great week. I love you. Goodbye. For those